Cruelty well used. Niccolo Machiavelli posits that the strategic application of violence must be executed with surgical swiftness to minimize the duration of social trauma. This is the economy of cruelty. When a ruler seizes a state, he must catalog every necessary injury and inflict them all at once. This prevents the need for daily recurrence. It allows the populace to begin the psychological process of forgetting and moving forward. Evolutionary psychology suggests that sudden, overwhelming force establishes a dominance hierarchy that is harder to challenge than a gradual increase in pressure. Humans adapt to consistent misery with simmering resentment. They adapt to sudden trauma with paralyzed shock. The ruler who hesitates to be cruel is forced to be cruel every single day. This creates a feedback loop of hatred that eventually consumes the entire administrative structure. A ruler should aim to be perceived as merciful, but must possess the inner coldness to act without hesitation. Cesare Borgia utilized Ramiro da Orco to pacify the Romagna through brutal methods. Once the region was stable, Borgia had his own agent cut in half and displayed in the public square. This act simultaneously satisfied the people's desire for vengeance and terrified them into absolute submission. It was a masterclass in shifting the blame for systemic violence onto a disposable subordinate. The human mind seeks a singular scapegoat for its suffering. By providing one, the prince purges the collective anger of the masses while maintaining his own aura of divine authority. Social order is not maintained by justice. It is maintained by the periodic and spectacular demonstration of absolute power. Peace is merely the byproduct of a sufficiently terrifying and completed massacre. Loved or feared, the prince faces a binary choice in the management of human subjects. It is desirable to be both loved and feared. However, these two emotions rarely coexist in a stable equilibrium. If a choice must be made, it is significantly safer to be feared. Love is a social contract based on the fickle nature of gratitude. Humans are inherently ungrateful and self-serving. They will break the bond of love the moment it becomes inconvenient or costly. Fear is different. Fear is an involuntary physiological response anchored in the dread of punishment. It creates a permanent psychological restraint that does not rely on the subject's willpower or moral character. The amygdala does not negotiate with social obligations. It simply commands obedience to avoid the predicted sensation of pain. The ruler must navigate the narrow corridor between fear and hatred. Fear is a tool of governance. Hatred is a catalyst for insurrection. To avoid hatred, the prince must abstain from interfering with the property and the women of his subjects. Men are psychologically wired to prioritize material security over emotional loss. A man will forgive the execution of his father long before he forgives the confiscation of his patrimony. The loss of an ancestor is a finite event. The loss of wealth is a continuous reminder of the ruler's overreach. Keep the subjects' pockets full and their lives safe from random predation. They will accept the yoke of tyranny as long as the cost of rebellion outweighs the cost of submission. Humans will endure the loss of a soul before they tolerate the seizure of their bank account. The lion and the fox. Power requires the integration of two distinct animalistic archetypes. The lion represents brute force and the ability to drive off wolves. The fox represents the cunning necessary to recognize and avoid traps. A ruler who relies solely on the lion is a fool. He is easily led into a snare by more intelligent adversaries. A ruler who is only a fox is easily crushed by the first displays of physical aggression. The successful actor must oscillate between these two states with clinical precision. He must use the lion to shatter the will of his enemies. He must use the fox to navigate the labyrinth of court politics and shifting alliances. Most individuals are trapped by their own singular temperament. They fail because they cannot change their nature. The modern manifestation of this duality is seen in the high-stakes corporate and political arenas. The lion dominates the boardroom with presence and intimidation. The fox operates in the shadows of information asymmetrical warfare. Machiavelli observes that most men are so simple and so focused on their immediate needs that a deceiver will always find someone willing to be deceived. Virtue is a liability if it prevents the necessary transition to vice. The prince must appear to possess all the traditional qualities of goodness while remaining mentally prepared to act against them. Integrity is a prison for the unimaginative mind. In a world of predators, the most dangerous entity is the one who can convincingly mimic the prey. The ultimate predator is a shapeshifter who treats his own character as a disposable costume for social profit. Virtù and Fortuna. Success is the product of a violent collision between individual capability and environmental entropy. Machiavelli defines virtù not as moral goodness, but as the raw energy and strategic intelligence required to bend reality. Fortuna is the unpredictable river of chance that destroys the unprepared. Fortune is the mistress of half our actions, but she leaves the other half for us to direct. A man of true virtù builds dams and dikes during the dry season. He anticipates the flood before the first drop of rain falls. He does not pray for luck. He creates a structural environment where luck becomes irrelevant. The prince who relies entirely on fortune will collapse the moment the external variables shift against his current configuration. Fortune is a woman who must be beaten and coerced into submission. She favors the young and the aggressive over the cautious and the timid. This is the psychology of the high-risk taker. Clinical observations of successful leaders show a higher tolerance for ambiguity and a willingness to initiate conflict. The passive observer waits for the stars to align. The Machiavellian actor realizes that he is the one who moves the stars. He understands that the universe is indifferent to his survival. He acts with audacity to force a favorable outcome from a chaotic system. Failure is often a result of a mismatch between a man's method and the timing of the era. Punchline. Destiny is a hallucination used by the weak to explain why they were outplayed by someone more aggressive. Avoiding flatterers. The ego is the greatest vulnerability of any person in power. Flattery is a social pathogen that bypasses rational defense mechanisms to infect the decision-making process. A ruler who enjoys praise is a ruler who is easily manipulated by his subordinates. They will provide the prince with a distorted map of reality to gain favor or hide their own incompetence. To combat this, the prince must convince his inner circle that telling the truth does not offend him. However, if everyone is allowed to speak the truth, the ruler's prestige is diminished. The psychological distance required for authority is eroded by excessive familiarity. The ruler must create a specific protocol for honesty to maintain the illusion of his own infallibility. The prince should select a small group of wise men and grant them the sole liberty of speaking the truth. Even then, they should only speak when they are specifically asked for their opinion. He must listen to their counsel with a cold, analytical mind, and then make the final decision in total isolation. This prevents the formation of factions and keeps the advisors in a state of perpetual uncertainty regarding their influence. The ruler must be the ultimate filter of information. He must be skeptical of every motive and every word. Social hierarchy requires a careful management of information flow to prevent the erosion of respect. A leader who invites everyone to be honest will soon find himself being lectured by the people he is supposed to rule. The necessity of parsimony. Generosity is a strategic trap that leads to inevitable ruin. To be perceived as generous, a ruler must spend lavishly on displays of wealth and public works. This exhausts the state treasury and necessitates the imposition of heavy taxes on the general population. The few who benefit from the ruler's largesse will support him weakly. The many who are taxed to pay for it will hate him intensely. Once the money runs out, the reputation for generosity vanishes. The ruler is left with a bankrupt state and a resentful populace. It is much wiser to accept a reputation for being a miser at the start of one's reign. Parsimony is the clinical management of resources to ensure survival. By being frugal, the prince ensures he has the funds to defend the state and engage in necessary enterprises without burdening the people. Over time, the subjects will perceive his parsimony as a form of true generosity. They realize that they are not being robbed by their government to fund the whims of the elite. A reputation for being cheap is a protective shield that prevents the public from developing a dependency on state handouts. Human gratitude has an incredibly short half-life, while human greed is an eternal and expanding force. The ruler who tries to satisfy the greed of the masses will only succeed in making them more demanding. It is better to be hated for being cheap than to be pitied for being bankrupt and powerless. Strategic infidelity. A prince is not bound by his word when keeping it would be against his interests. The moral obligation of a promise is a social construct designed to regulate the behavior of the masses. In the realm of high power, circumstances are dynamic and nonlinear. A promise made under one set of conditions becomes a suicide pact under another. Machiavelli observes that if all men were good, this precept would be bad. But because men are wretched creatures who will not keep their word to you, you are not bound to keep your word to them. This is the psychology of strategic reciprocity. The prince must be a master of simulation and dissimulation. He must appear to be the embodiment of integrity. The most effective deception is the one that is never suspected. A ruler must possess a flexible mind that can adapt to the winds of fortune. He should stay on the path of good when possible, but know how to enter the path of evil when necessary. Sincerity is a luxury for those who do not bear the responsibility of the state. The public judges only by the result and the appearance. If a prince wins and maintains his state, the means will always be judged honorable and praised by everyone. The masses are always taken in by appearances and by the outcome of an event. Integrity is the camouflage of the successful predator. The most successful liars are those who have spent their entire lives convincing the world they are incapable of lying. The New Order. Establishing a new system of government is the most dangerous and difficult task a human can undertake. The innovator makes enemies of all those who profited under the old order. These enemies are motivated by a clear and present loss of status and wealth. Conversely, the innovator receives only lukewarm support from those who might benefit from the new order. This hesitation stems from the fear of the existing laws and the natural skepticism of mankind. Humans do not truly believe in anything new until they have had a long experience of it. This creates a period of extreme vulnerability where the old forces are highly motivated to destroy the nascent structure before it can solidify. To succeed, the innovator must have the power to compel obedience by force. Orators who rely solely on persuasion are doomed to fail the moment the crowd loses its initial enthusiasm. The prince must be prepared to use the sword to reinforce the word. This often requires the total elimination of the previous ruler's bloodline and the physical destruction of old institutions. One cannot build a new edifice on a foundation of lingering loyalty to the past. Stability requires the absolute erasure of the previous status quo to prevent it from becoming a focal point for future rebellion. Power is not granted through consensus. It is seized through the systematic dismantling of the competition. Revolution is a biological reset that requires the physical termination of the past to ensure the survival of the future.